Clay Wilson kind of takes pride in being a pornographer.
Well, I don't take pride in being a photographer necessarily. I just happen to draw dirty pictures. But
whatever. Gilbert Hernandez dabbles in it. Birdland. Waller just has an anthology of his erotic art, not to be confused with pornography. I'm not sure. Can you talk about those differences? I mean, besides it, why is sex so important? Aside from it being.
Why is sex so important?
It's like, well, why is it? It's part of life.
To draw about, but I mean,
it's funny. For one thing, it's funny. I like to answer. I was showing myself as I draw smut, which is sex with a twist or humor.
Right.
And I don't necessarily see myself as erotic. I see it as more smutty or like a Tijuana Bible, something like that. Right. It's like sex as a subject to be made fun of or to revel in, right? You know. Wallow in, revel in. That's right. And it's part of life, isn't it? Well, I mean, people do stuff about draw stuff about food, but not sex.
But it's just a part of life. And of course, it's a taboo that needs to be is fun to break. But
it's also real traditional.
I'm not really asking.
Doing it for centuries.
I'm asking like why that is, and how you deal with that, and
well, it's just a part of our comic book too.
Point is,
it's actually a very small percentage of the comic itself. It's just that we didn't leave it out.
Yeah,
and because a lot of our material
it's not so much that you put it in, it's why should you leave it out.
It deals with we've had people throw up in our book too, but that doesn't it fit at the time. I mean, we also have plenty of we have off-camera sex. We don't follow everybody every step of the way. That's one of the things.
Why is pornography so powerful? That's really
sex is very threatening.
Sex is very, very threatening. Our culture's really screwed up. People
who are the Europeans think we're mad. People who are sexually free don't make good slaves of the state.
All right.
This is why in the '60s this is why you've got to stop sex and drugs, because they're really, really dangerous to the establishment. Because once people experience that, and better yet, sex is free.
Not anymore with age.
Not anymore. Well,
it costs you your life.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, there's always been a great deal of lack of interest in taking care of venereal diseases and making sex safe. It's a fairly it's not that difficult. A lot of venereal diseases aren't difficult to treat, and they probably wouldn't be that difficult to prevent if anybody was willing to invest a dime in figuring out how to do so. But then people might actually be free to have sex, and that again wouldn't serve the doesn't serve the institutions of our culture.
Like H.L. Mencken said about the Puritans and people being puritanical, said the haunting fear that somebody somewhere is having fun. Yeah. And they don't want you to have fun. I mean, the powers that be. They want to control it.
I don't know how many doctors that I've heard cussing about like gonorrhea, for example, and this. I don't understand what this is all about. I heard one doctor say he was just finally pissed off. Why can't they just inoculate people for this like they do anything else? And there isn't any reason. But that's just an example of well if something bad happens to you in the course of having sex, well, then you deserve it.
Yeah, that's really sick. I think AIDS can probably be prevented. They could probably find a cure in AIDS probably within the year if they concentrated on it.
Well, also they certainly could have if they'd been willing to give explicit education.
Yeah.
If they'd been willing to give explicit education right from the start. But of course, there was a great deal. I was just reading an article today about immunity. About mucosal immunity. Mucous membranes, which is how stuff is spread. There is a way of stimulating the mucous membrane to defend itself better. It's got its own defense system. But of course, they're sitting here going, well, yeah, but people are going to get really upset at the idea of, instead of giving someone a nice shot in the arm, actually exposing their mucous membranes, because that's not nice. Yeah, and they're expecting to run into a lot of resistance to just even the concept of the testing because of that.
So, are your comics sort of maybe considered how-to books, almost like the joy of sex, like a textbook?
No way.
Not with all the bad sex in them, no.
But why not? It deals with.
It's
deals,
not my,
I mean, it deals with the emotional parts. I mean, don't you think people will want? I mean,
I had to learn it the hard way.
Like the
the
famous
hard way too.
the art room scene where he sticks the woman's head in the toilet.
Well, I don't expect.
Now everyone is doing it at home. I mean, how?
Don't try this at home.
I don't think. I'm sorry. I don't think by the time people's bones have hardened, anything that they read, as long as they're basically wrapped tight, is going to make a hell of a lot of difference one way or the other.
And anybody that's got the perverted ambition to go to all the trouble to play out comic books backwards and see what they sound like, you're on your own, pal.
We're kind of disappointed. I was on a panel once with a bunch of horror writers, and we ended up talking about nut mail. And I felt really guilty because we never get any nut mail.
Yeah.
We don't get any nut mail. I mean, we get the occasional piece, written in crayon in a brown paper bag, but that's being in comics. Everybody gets that. But these horror writers, man, they get nut mail. People send them albums of Victorian bondage photos that they want them to enjoy. They get real nut mail, but in comics, I don't know. That doesn't happen now.
Where do I get these Victorian bondage?
Horror stories play, it will come to you.
Dave Stevens gets the greatest mail, I swear. I guess 'cause
Bob Burden gets pretty good weird mail, too. But that's understandable, isn't it? And he gives public readings into the bargain.
because Stevens is just dealing with that completely superficial, childish way look at sex, so he gets great mail.
Oh, yeah, because of Betty?
Yeah, they love
Horrors.
it. Just sending magazines, just really rare stuff.
We don't get that because you already have to be able to read. It doesn't work. It doesn't work as a sex book. It doesn't work as a stroke book at all. It's way too complicated for that.
Well,
there isn't enough sex in it for that.
Be glad you don't get the kind of mail I get. It's interesting. 15 years ago, there was kind of a more intellectual climate in the country, and you could disagree or depart from the norm, and people didn't have, it wasn't quite so common to find people saying, because I disagree with you, I'm going to beat the shit out of you or whatever, and that's something that you run into now when you have, when you're a political cartoonist. Bill Sanders, who was a cartoonist in Milwaukee Journal, asked him about, how do you deal with that when you get that kind of mail and those phone calls and stuff, and he said, well, he had an organized, I forget which one it was one of the white supremacist groups, was calling him and telling him, we know where your car is, where you park your car. They told him exactly where it was, and they were correct. We know what time you leave, we know where you go. And they were going on like this, and I said, so how do you deal with that? And his reaction was, well, screw them.
Why couldn't you make it, you get parked someplace else? That's how sharp those guys are. They tell you where you should not park, right?
Well, but I found that was what you do have to do if you want to do political cartoons, is you have to just decide if you want to do them badly enough, you're just not going to be afraid of that.
Oh, that's right. We did once get a whole spate of mail when Reed said something unkind about libertarians in the letter column.
Is that right?
They all wrote, yeah.
Oh, every one of them.
Every one of them. But that's the only time. Nothing about what's in the comic.
Question.
Yeah.
You got a question?
I had kind of a comment to your question about why sex be in a comic book. Well, why shouldn't sex be in a comic book? The main reason it should be is because, I don't know, 99% of sex is fantasy anyway. And in order to really enjoy it in this world, I think the best places for it are to express it not necessarily directly to another person, but through the media.
To a whole lot of people.
To a lot of people.
The more the merrier.
It's more fun to draw it. I always draw it.
So,
Orgy with the reader.
question.
I was